Hello everyone, today we are back on the Update 1.77 dev server and it's time to talk about a new aircraft instead of just some of the new tanks. This is the He.177A-5, probably the most hyped aircraft that we have out of this new update. The reason for this is because it's the first true heavy bomber that the Germans get, at least the true heavy bomber which they produced in World War II. Some may argue the DO 217s are also heavy bombers, and also the BV. But anyway, so, this plane is a battle rating 5.3 aircraft, so it's very comparable to the Lancaster at 5.7, the later Tu-2s, and also the first B-17s. What does it have as advantages over such aircraft? Well, first of all, the bomb load, which we'll get into, the speed of this machine, which is hampered because of the bomb load being so large, and also, maybe you could say survivability, if you want to talk about its turrets, and, well, that's just a debate that we'll get into in a little bit. First of all, we're going to have a look at the modifications of the machine. You start off with 48 50s, which isn't anything to laugh about. I actually think it's a pretty good amount of tonnage to start off with. It just means that you're either going to have to macro the amount of bombs that you drop at once, or you're going to have to hit that spacebar a hell of a lot of times to be able to make it drop in a effective way, because this is definitely a base bomber. This is not something that you're going to use to try and kill medium or heavy tanks. You're going to be at a high altitude, and you're going to use it to crack bases and then crack airfields, very much like the other bombers, such as the B-17, such as the Lancaster, that we see in game. I'm talking about an aerialistic point of view at the moment. On top of that, if we have a look at the other bomb loads that it gets, the first one allows installation of 250 kilo bombs, which is this, the 12 by 250 kilos. Now, you do actually get more tonnage over the 48 50 kilo bombs, so upgrading to that is a good idea to do straight away. If you want to get another modification, I would probably say get one of the max speed ones, because at the BR of, well, not max speed ones, but flight performance ones, because at the BR that this thing sits at 5.3, you've got to understand, that is early Griffin territory, that is Tempest territory, that is late tier Russian territory when it comes to props, and that is also some of the best by BR American fighters that you can find. P-47N, P-47M-RE, stuff like all of the P-51s, the F-82, especially the F-82, is going to tear you apart. So yeah, just be getting flight performance upgrades is going to be very useful, so you can actually get to the target. If we look at the ETC 500, which is the next bomber modification, it only gives you 6 500s, but it gives you slightly more explosive mass. So you can see here on the bomb of a 250, you get 125 kilos. And then on a 500 kilo, you get 260. So if you drop two 250s here, you would have 250 kilos worth of explosive mass, where on the 500, you have 260. So you gain about 10 kilos. But you lose the versatility of having 12 bombs over 6. All of these are stored in the bomb bay, by the way, which is in the center of the fuselage. When we go up to the next point, we have the 4,000 kilos. So this is now where we're talking. We're talking about big boy pants here, the DO 217s. This is where they get very good. And once again, it's all in the internal bomb load. So if you're worried about people knowing that what bombs you have and stuff like that, you can be able to take 4,000 kilos without people knowing. At the same time, it doesn't seem to affect stats that much, especially max speed, which is the main one you're going to need to be able to get to the target in the first place. And then the last one, allow installation of 1,800 kilo bombs. So you can get either 2 1,800 kilos or 2 1,800 kilos and 6 500s. So the 2 1,800 kilos, as you can see here, if you just take them by themselves, they sit nicely in the fuselage. If you don't just take them by yourself or by themselves, you stick them on the wings and you get to see how big these things are. They are absolutely huge. So you take 2 1800 kilos and 6 500s for a total kilogram of bomb to be 6,600 kilos, which is pretty good, we'll say, at 5.3. You do lose about 25 kilometers an hour of speed, but you're still faster than the B-17, you're still faster than the Lancaster. You will not turn as well as them with this bomb load, but that doesn't really matter when you're trying to get to the targets. The only issue I've personally found with this bomb load is the fact that because the 1800 kilos are mounted on the wings, that pretty much means that you cannot drop them independently. You have to drop them at the same time. So if you want a base bomb, maybe with a squad member or something, it may be worth trying to gain a bit of speed and being able to just take something like the 2 1800s or the 4 1000s and just killing 2 bases, since you can drop them independently. But that's pretty much, at least you have an option there. You don't just have to do something very specific. So, yeah, that's what I would say with regards to the bomb loads. If we have a look at the armor on the thing, we have 7mm in the bottom here, 7mm on the top, and then we have 9mm, and I believe that's also 9 in this little thing, yep. And then we have a little bit of coverage on this gunner as well, and then we have the bulletproof glass at the back. So the best place to hit this thing, as per usual with a lot of German bombers, is straight in the face, which is right about here, or maybe it's an angle coming up. Now yes, you have to deal with a 20mm, and also a 7.92, I believe. Yep, a 7.92. But if you come straight head-on or from the side and come in, you should be able to knock out this turret really easily. At the same time, this is a large aircraft. It is not going to be that hard to shoot. It's going to be quite easy to shoot, actually. And one of the things is, even though it does have a nice armor profile for the turret, it does not have a nice armor profile for the wings or for the fuselage. So once that's hit, you're going to hit fuel tanks, oil, water, everything. So, as we know with these larger bombers, what happens is if you hit one of the wings, then it becomes incredibly unbalanced, and then eventually it will just fall out of the air because of that. I would be careful sitting on its tail, because once again it does have a 20mm sat on the tail, including with that a 13mm, and then the 2 13mm here. Also something to note, there's this lad here, who's sat here, and he has pretty much good coverage at a 45-degree angle, or around about 45 degrees, below the He.177. So anything coming from this direction he's able to hit. So the only place that you can actually attack the He.177 and not be shot back at is directly below. So you can just come up at the fuselage and shoot that. I would still aim for the cockpit, but I still think the best place to attack this at is straight front on, and just annihilate the turret and even an engine. Because even though this thing has 4 engines, they're in a configuration set by 2. So if you take out one of these engines, or if, let's say, you hurt one of these engines, the DB610s, then what's going to happen is it's just going to fall out the sky. The He.177 was designed to have 4 engines. That's why you can see that they've taken 2 engines and kind of put them together in a very complicated way here. And if that means that if one of these propeller heads gets taken out, then yeah, this thing's going to fall out of the sky incredibly quickly, and there's not really going to be a lot that you can do about it. So even, you know how with the BV, it's kind of annoying to approach, but if you get a few hits into it, especially it's in a wing, or especially a few of the engines, you know about 5 or 10 minutes later, it's going to fall out of the air and die. That, to me, feels like what the He.177A-5 is going to be like. It's going to be one of these vehicles that you have where it's, let's just go random settings. Where, can I really not find a bomber one? Really? How about this then? Then we'll go this. There we go. Fine, we'll just kill artillery then. Yeah, but it's going to be one of those things that eventually falls out the air. But it's going to take a bit of time to do it. But if you are using some of those high-tier fighters that I was talking about, such as like the Tempest Mark V, you really shouldn't have much issue killing this thing. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's going to be interesting to see what spawn it gets. I'm pretty sure it will get a heavy bomber spawn, so very similar to what you see in the B-17 and also the Lancaster. But overall, it should be... Where are my bombs on my wings? Did I take them off? No, they're there now. But it does have WEP, which is nice. And also the cockpit view. I actually really like it. I know it's a cockpit placeholder at this moment in time, but for me personally, I just think this is a lovely cockpit. It's got a lot of coverage. It is well detailed for a cockpit placeholder. At the same time, you have all the instruments down here. They don't move, unfortunately, but you do have all of the instruments here that you can see. You can't really see anything behind you because, well, this thing is, pushed so far forward. You do have the gunner behind you, though, and of course the gunner in front, which is nice. And I'm getting shot at. Oh, okay. Well, we've just been hit by artillery. One thing that is going to be interesting with this aircraft is its engines. Something that I read about a lot is the fact that its engines overheated a lot. Like, they overheated quickly, and they overheated ferociously, very much like what you see in the Avro Manchester, and even the Halifax to a certain degree from the British. So, will this be modeled in game? It seems like it. I was trying to take off with this machine before, and what I found was... Yeah, good night. And what I found was, when I took off, about 5 seconds after the takeoff, with a full load of course, the engines were trying to kill themselves. So I feel like it is going to be modeled in that these aircraft will have quite bad engines when it comes to this. So that's good, in my opinion. It means that it has a weakness. It means that you can't stay in the air too long, because your engines will get damaged. The general maneuverability of it is about how you would imagine a large bomber with a heavy bomb load would be. If we are comparing it to some of the other machines that we have in game, I would say it's pretty much on par with a lot of them if we talk about just general maneuverability. It is a large target though, so if you go anywhere near airfields like I am not doing right now, I'm just going near AA right now at 2,500, you're going to get mashed up. But as long as the damage is all the same, as you can see here, you should be alright. But anyway, let's get the big bombs off, just so, there we go, just so I can show you the bomb bay. So the bomb bay is here. It is absolutely massive. It's a big one in the middle of the fuselage, and it can carry, as I said, two 1800s, four 1000s, six 500s. It's a good one. It basically means that you can have a lot of fun with it. Target has been destroyed. I destroyed something. No idea what it was. But yeah. Let's look at the damage. So we've been hit by AA. Oop. Yeah, Tempest, that ain't gonna work too well. We have those top 13mm. The 13mm are going to do a lot of damage. The main issue with some of the guns, so the tail gunner who sits here, he doesn't have a huge coverage. I want to J out and get in another one actually, because I want to show the general coverage without gunners being dead. It doesn't seem very fair. So let's get in this one, which is not hurt. So the general coverage, like behind, you have the 20, and then the and then the gun from the front. From the top, you have both of these turrets, so you have pretty much three 13mm, From the side over here, it's a dead spot, as you can see. So that is somewhere where you can attack this thing. From the side here, it's also a dead spot. Apart from if you go slightly above, if you stay level with the plane, it is a dead spot. If you go below, then you have to only deal with the gun in the front over here. And as I said, it seems like it's around 45 degrees, and then it stops, maybe a little bit more than that. But it stops about here, so maybe 80 degrees actually. But that means you can approach the plane from below. From the front, you have to deal with a 20 and a 7.92. And also if you're going from above, you have to deal with the 13s as well. So if you go from below, like here, all you have to do is deal with a 20. So the best places to attack are here, since it's a dead zone, here, since it's another dead zone, and underneath. But if you are being practical about it, and let's say you're in around it, you're above it, and stuff like that, the best place to attack it is from straight ahead. It basically means that the pilot has to hit his 20, which is quite low velocity, especially compared to 50 cals and stuff. He has to hit you with that before you hit him, which is... you have to hit him with that instead of before he hits you, which is not ever going to happen, just because the 20 is not fast firing. You don't have technically any offensive armaments, they're all turret controlled, so crew slots, crew gunners are going to be incredibly important, and hopefully nobody sits on the tail of this thing. But well, we've seen in the past that that always happens as well when it comes to these. But I'm personally going to really enjoy this. It's 80,000 RP right now on the dev server, so it'll take maybe a day or two to grind out. And because I'm a bomber pilot, I was always going to enjoy this thing. But overall, having a look at it, having a look at its bomb loads, I wish the top bomb loads were a bit more versatile. You know, there was a bit more variety, like maybe I could take a bunch of 50s in the 1800s or something like that. But I'm still happy with it. I think it's still a good bomb load. I just wish there was a little bit more variety in the amount of bombs you could take with the 1800s. But apart from that, I think it's going to be a very fun plane to use. It's got good bomb load, it's got good speed, it's got good defensive armaments, good enough to keep you alive, just like the DO-217s do. And another thing is that it is about on par maneuverable with the other stuff. If we look at its rip speed, I think that's actually important to look at. We're going at 600 right now. Can we pull up? Yeah, we can just about pull up at 600. It doesn't want to, but you can still do it. And now I can't even put the nose down. But let's just have a look. So as you can see, just wepping for about maybe a minute does cook the engines. 658, can we press it down more? It doesn't really want to go down more, which is interesting. But we're going at 660, we still have full control. Still have pretty good aileron control as well, especially for a larger bomber, and we're losing speed now. So, oh, go away, AA. Extreme overload 4G, but we're still pulling it, and we're pulling it fine. Extreme overload 3G, and we can loop. So, it can dive pretty well. I mean, one of the biggest, I suppose you'd call it nerfs that the B-17 got during its time was the fact that it wasn't able to dive well. Because of, I think Gaijin just got sick of the fact that people were maneuvering so you could just never attack a B-17 unless you hit it in the tail. So when we look at the dive of bombers, it's actually kind of important to be able to get out of situations once you've dropped your bombs to get out of dodge, and it seems like the He.177 has a pretty good dive on it. I just want to test its actual, you know, rip speed. I'm not even sure I'll get to it in this. We'll see. So red line is about 670, and then overload is about just higher than that. So you don't want to go around 650 or higher, which, you know, makes sense. Sticking around the high 400s, low 500s mark is where you want to be. Yeah, hopefully this comes to the live server in this state and nothing is changed, because I think it'll be a hell of a lot of fun. It is an aircraft which I have been looking forward to, and the community have been looking forward to, and I don't think it breaks the game or anything, like stuff when the TU4 was added or the B29. The bomb load may be a little bit circumspect when we talk about how large it is, but it's still got to get to the target, and that's going to depend on how good the allied fighters are. And we'll have to see in the future if that needs to be balanced, like does this thing have to go up in BR because of that, but it'll really depend on that idea. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.